sand. It's very, very physically pleasing to the feet. But yeah, a lot of this trail goes down this road until we bang a Richard into the woods. So we're just making our way up to that point. Slow down, 20 miles per hour maximum. Do not break the law. That is a nice fire hydrant. Brand new, gorgeous, nice and red, beautiful. This hill is bigger than Mount Marcy. I'm telling you, there is more gain on this friggin' hill than Mount Marcy. This is like the Great Range Traverse right here. Ah!
After climbing all the way up this hill on Tarbell Road, you go back in the woods, and then you'll climb 1.1 miles all the way back down towards Long Lake. One thing to note here, this trail is filled with trail signs and mileages, and they're all saying different mileages from the map. Sometimes multiple miles differences. So take that with a grain of salt. For example, the Nat Geo map says Kelly Point from Long Lake Trailhead's 4.1 miles, whereas the wooden sign at Long Lake said 5.9. And this seemed to be a common theme today and on this whole section, actually. So be mindful of that. I should also mention the map mileage for today's hike says 19.6 miles, whereas Josh's tracking on his phone said it was 22.9 hiking miles. Just something worth mentioning, so take it all with a grain of salt and kind of as a ballpark. And this was a nice dry trail in the woods, thankfully. I imagine a lot of locals probably walk their dogs on this trail since it's a nice walk down to Long Lake.
A lot of ups and downs on the trail heading towards Long Lake. Trail is covered in leaves, nice and soft with rocks and dirt. Forest is very open, can see for a while. So far so good. Kind of a textbook woods. A lot of spruce trees.
Just before we came out to a swampy bog, we could see the Catlin Bay lean-to on the other side of the bog. So we started across, in the tall grass, trying to stay as dry as we could, before realizing there was no safe way across.
All right, we have come to a big grassy bog here near Long Lake. Question is, how do we go across? I guess we just go for it. Just kind of send it through this tall grass and swampy terrain. Hope we don't get ticks on us. Hope we don't dunk our foot into something big, and hope that there are no alligators in here that are gonna pop up here somewhere. Yeah, this is a weird, oh jeez, we're down. Weird spot here. I don't know, dude. Where are you going to go to right now? But do you think to go across? Yeah. Oh, feels like a strange spot here. Super wet and swampy and tall grass. Oh, there's a nice log to step on.
We didn't miss something over there, did we?
That's what I'm saying. I almost wonder if it went that way. But we're in it now. Head towards that log and hope it will hold when we try to go across. I just feel like this seems not right, but let's do it. We're right here.
I don't think I can get across from you. It's gonna sink.
Step on it.
I can't. You step on it.
Just like put your pole on it or something.
Dude, look at the view of it. I just want to see it.
So we have come to a crossroads here. How do we get across appropriately?
So we decided let's just backtrack, go back over to the other side of the bog and just walk around it and just kind of bushwhack to the left. But after we started doing that, we quickly saw trail markers and realized we missed a left turn on the trail once the bog was in sight. So it's easy to get to that little bog, little swampy area and go right towards it because it looks cool and then miss the left turn on the actual trail. So when you do get here, just turn left. You'll have plenty of time to enjoy the view from the other side. We got back on the trail, walked around, and crossed over the small bay as we arrived at the Catlin Bay lean-to at Long Lake just before 4 p.m., 10.5 hours into our day.
A nice gentle breeze blowing at us here off Long Lake. We are approaching the Catlin Bay lean-to. This area here right in front of the Catlin Bay lean-to in the woods is Super cool. Huge pine trees, some giant boulders, very open spot. This kind of has a textbook campsite vibe to it. And the lean-to looks very nice. Looks like it has a relatively new roof on it. Nice fire pit in front. Catlin Bay. I'd give this a pretty, this would be a good spot to stay.
Still 4 though.
I mean, we're gonna keep going in general because we still have, you know, gas in the tank, but this is actually a nice spot to stay, especially being right next to the lake. We're gonna take a break and then we're gonna keep pushing forward towards Kelly Point.
It's a great lean-to on the tip of Long Lake, a solid campsite. And this is a worthwhile location to spend a night at for sure. You got to take into consideration, depending on the time of year, all these lean-tos on Long Lake will have that cold breeze off the water, kind of like today. And this time of year, it was cold. The wind was quite strong once we got down to Long Lake. Nice and cold. Our plan for the day was to get to Catlin Bay and then assess how we're feeling at this point, but our real goal was Kelly Point. And knowing Josh and I and how we hike, I knew we were going to carry on regardless. And that's exactly what we did. We decided to make the final 3-mile push to Kelly Point to end our day there. From here, the trail moves along the shoreline and up in the woods slightly with the lake always in sight. Since it runs along the water, some of the trail has random items that have washed up on shore from the water. We found some buoys and some fishing bobbers, a plastic bin, you know, all the treasures from Long Lake. The sun was shining, fortunately, and since the wind was blowing hard, making the air a bit chilly, the sun was welcomed and felt great when we were standing directly in it.
The trails since we came back from lunch have been exactly what I had hoped the trails would be like here on the Northville-Placid Trail. And it is more of the same right now as we hike along Long Lake. Long Lake is on our left. We're a little ways in the woods, but it's on our left. The trail's covered in leaves. It's wide. It's very obvious. Plenty of trail markers. Easy to navigate. A little swampy, a little soupy at times. But pretty much once we came back from lunch, it's been awesome the whole way. Major difference from this morning.
These 3 miles winded their way through a mostly hardwood forest, but plenty of giant spruce and pine trees as well, along with the typical enormous down trees throughout, laying across the trail, next to the trail. Actually, it was kind of blowdown city during this stretch. Josh and I were certainly on autopilot during these 3 miles. We came to a river and we quickly filled up our water bottles for the night, so one nightly task was complete.
The trail is now back along the shores of Long Lake. Got a couple miles left to the Kelly Point lean-to. The wind is frigid. It's probably going to be a pretty cold night since the temperature alone is going to drop down into the 20s. I think low 20s. And then you add the wind and the fact that I believe the lean-to faces the water. It's going to be cold. But we'll be all right.
Just before we arrived at the Kelly Point lean-to, we saw thunderbox and campsite markers near the lake, so we knew we were close. And then a few minutes later, we saw the Kelly Point lean-tos about 50 yards to the left of the trail. We arrived at 5:40 p.m.
Walking under some huge spruce trees that have been knocked down here by the wind. Friggin' massive. Climb over it. And we have arrived at the Kelly Point lean-to. Number 1, number 2. Nice 22-ish mile day to start us off here on the Northville-Placid Trail at the Kelly Point lean-to here, which is facing Long Lake. Nice fire pit in front. You're literally facing the water, so get that water breeze coming in. But it's gonna be a really nice view as the sun sets directly in front of the lean-to over the mountain, so it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna kick off our boots, put our Crocs on, because yes, the Crocs came with us. That is a must-have item. And set up camp and have some dinner.
One quick note about all these lean-tos on Long Lake. They're not right on the trail. They're all a good 50 yards off of it, and there aren't any signs pointing you to them, so if you were walking in the dark, they'd be very hard to spot on the trail, unless you were staring at your GPS and looking towards the water every few seconds, and even then, they'd still be hard to find where they are. So keep that in mind, and do yourself a favor and plan to avoid walking this stretch at night if you're looking to stay at one of these lean-tos. So we walked over to the empty site and checked out lean-to number 1 and lean-to number 2. Ultimately choosing to sleep in the lean-to on the right if you're looking at the water. And I'm not exactly sure if that's number 1 or 2, but they're about 20 feet apart, directly next to each other. And like all the lean-tos on this trail, they both had a nice fire pit directly in front of the lean-to. We opted to stay in the one on the right due to the wind cover that we had from the trees and the fire pit directly in front because it was cold on the water and we assumed it would only get worse throughout the night. But our 20-plus mile hike was complete. Now it was time to set up camp and prepare for the low 20-degree temperatures the night would bring. But first things first, off went the boots and socks and on went the Crocs. This episode of the 46 of 46 podcast is brought to you by Crocs. Not really. Hey, but if you work at Crocs and you're listening, hey, let's talk. As always, it felt fantastic to take the boots off, though my feet felt pretty good on the day considering a 20-plus mile day. And at this point, we both started gathering as much firewood as we could to build our fire. After collecting wood, we changed into our clothing for the evening, which for me was a lightweight base layer top and bottom, another heavyweight base layer on the bottom, since base layers are really easy to pack and they don't take up much space and they're good bang for your buck when you're backpacking. Then I put a mid layer on top, along with my puffy and a fresh pair of socks. These are the clothes I would sleep in my 20-degree synthetic sleeping bag from EMS. So with the night's 20-degree temperatures, we were definitely pushing the limits of our sleeping bags for sure. But that's what layers are for, and neither Josh or I wanted to carry our very heavy 0-degree sleeping bags on this stretch. After changing clothes, we set up our beds, blew up our camping pads and pillows, laid them on top of a thermarest pad, and then built our fire. We went with the teepee-style campfire this evening. One thing to note as well, all of the lean-tos have an outhouse or a thunderbox at them to take care of your business at the end of the day, so that's nice. And this one's privy was without a door, thankfully. You know, the ones without a door, as you can imagine, have a lot less pungent of an odor, if you catch my drift. Plus, you don't need a headlamp to go in there. We had the fire burning, we were changed for the evening, boots and socks in front of the fire to dry, time to make dinner. Tonight I was eating Asian rice and chicken that I brought, which I cooked on my little MSR pocket stove. Not quite something I'd want to eat at home, but in the woods after a long day on the trail, it was heavenly, and it was a lot of food. So that was good. The sun was starting to set over the lake directly in front of the lean-to, which faces west. The wind had died down now, and the air was calm. So, needless to say, it was pretty spectacular since the lean-tos faced the lake looking directly west. Just perfect. Well, it was quite cold, but pretty perfect. So we have a fire going, we had dinner, sun's gone down, we're here at the lean-to, the wind has stopped. It is as gentle a night as you could ever imagine out here in the woods. Long Lake is looking incredible. Our day today ended at 23.9 miles. Tomorrow will be 16.2, with our goal being ending at Duck Hole Lean-to. And then the final day will be 12 miles back to Lake Placid. We have our lean-to set up, camping pads out, sleeping bags set up, and the night is as quiet as can be. A perfect start to our trip on the Northville-Placid Trail. The sun had set around 8 p.m., the campfire was burning, our bellies full and our clothes dry. The quiet night on the lake was winding down exactly how you'd want it to. Kelly Point also has an awesome rock right on the water, too. Perhaps this is the literal Kelly Point, but it's an amazing place to just sit and take it all in. Picture perfect. It's exactly what you'd imagine when thinking of camping at a lean-to on an Adirondack lake. The vibes were strong. After we ate and finished getting ready for bed, we loaded our bear bags with our food and our toiletries and whatnot and hung them from a tree to keep the bears away. Fortunately, there was a perfect tree and branch about 30 yards up from the lean-to. We hung our food, walked back over to the rock to enjoy the lake some more before calling the wife to say goodnight. Yes, we did have cell service here at Long Lake. Thanks, Verizon. And then we called it a night. We went to sleep as